Shigeru was an ugly loser who lost his job and will to live after a girl framed him for being a molester. But when he gets a chance to go to another world, he sacrifices his looks and ability to touch girls in exchange of absolute power that turns him into a god. Shigeru was always ugly, but he was never a bastard. He was a regular office worker who didn't let his ugly appearance stop him from being an upright human and living his life to the fullest. He treated everyone with respect and had a modest social life. But everything changed when a woman falsely accused him of touching her on a train. No one believed him just because he was ugly, and the matter soon went to court. Shigeru pleaded guilty to pay a small fine and get out of it quickly, but his plan backfired and he was kicked out of his job for being a certified molester. However, a few years later, the woman who falsely accused him was arrested for running a scam. She wasn't even in it for money and framed the men she found ugly on purpose. Shigeru was furious, but he couldn't do anything about it. Because of the trauma he faced from the incident, he lost his confidence, and he could not find a job. Things got worse as time passed, and Shigeru became a jobless shut-in. He ate through his savings and even his parents' money when one day, he reads an article about people going missing in his area. He wishes he would disappear too, but as he reads the comments under the article, he finds a guy who claims that he visited another world. He says that he messed up by distributing his stat points wrong at the beginning and had to return back to Earth by sacrificing half his life. Shigeru laughs at this, but he is too desperate and decides to follow the instructions left by the guy. He faces towards the windows with his arms raised, and then, as the clock hits 2, his laptop screen changes by itself, asking him if he wants to start a new life. Shigeru thinks it is just a virus, but he plays along, clicking next on the page. The next page shows him that he would be 16 years old in the new life, and he could alter how many points he would put into his looks. Having been an ugly man all his life, Shigeru drops the value from 5 to -255, and that gives him a huge amount of bonus stat points. Not only that, Shigeru finds that the more negative features he chooses for himself, the more stat points he gets. He immediately begins typing things that no one else would want, like getting his income reduced by 10,000%, and losing 10% of his HP every time he touches a girl. As for his final condition, he writes that if he ever loses his V card, he loses his life, and the system gives him 100 trillion bonus stat points in return. However, before Shigeru can distribute those points to his stats, the timer reaches 0, and he is sent to another world. When he wakes up, he finds that he has become more ugly than he was in his previous life, and on top of that, he is twice as heavy as the average American. Just then, more people arrive there, and Shigeru gets shy on seeing the 2 girls in their underwear. The handsome guy takes off his shirt and gives it to one of the girls shivering from cold, and Shigeru tries to be a gentleman and does the same thing. However, the other girl refuses him because she doesn't want something worn by an ugly fatso. Anyway, the handsome guy introduces himself as Seiji. The blonde loli doesn't share her name, and the second girl introduces herself as Seika. All of them are 16, and they find it hard to believe that Shigeru is the same age as them. Seiji takes the lead and confirms that all of them came to this world following the same method. But while they talk, Shigeru decides to search the room because he isn't here to make friends. He opens a drawer and finds a gold coin in it, which disappears just as he touches it. He realizes that since he put the condition to reduce his income, the money vanished, but decides not to worry too much about it. Just then, Seiji comes inside and tells Shigeru that they should look for resources together. Soon, they find a bunch of weapons and clothes as well as some coins. Shigeru doesn't think that the tiny clothes would fit him, but they turn out to be magical and adjust to everyone's body. Next, the girls decide to divide the money amongst them, but they point out that there are only 7 coins and 8 people here. They believe that Shigeru stole the 8th coin, and he realizes that they are right. He decides to let them have all the coins to themselves, and even though Seiji tells him that it is unfair, Seika tells him that they should keep the coins because Shigeru didn't even help in finding them. Shigeru hates the spoiled already, but he decides to ignore her and deal with Seiji, asking if he can have the axe in exchange for the money. Seika is against that, and even Seiji says that he can't take those decisions alone. He reveals that in his original life, he was selfish and had communication issues, and he is trying hard to be different in this life. He points out that Shigeru seems to have some issues himself as well, and he should try to get over them. In the end, they decide to divide the weapons with rock, paper, scissors, and Shigeru loses to everyone, getting only the wooden club as his weapon. Next, Seiji says that they should shake hands to mark the start of their adventure. But Shigeru refuses because he isn't taking any risks this time. Soon, they find a map and decide to head to the nearest town. But as soon as they open the door, they find a small goblin ready to attack them. Seiji quickly takes action and kills the goblin with a single strike. But then he finds that more of them are heading this way. He takes the lead, telling the blonde Loli to support him on the front lines while Seika strings her bow to join the fight. He asks Shigeru to protect Seika in the meantime, and then starts defeating the goblins one by one. Seika, however, is a total noob who can't even string a bow, and while Shigeru is judging him, a goblin attacks him from behind. He decides to finish it off in one hit, but he finds that he is ridiculously weak right now. The small goblin is able to push him back, and when Shigeru wonders how can he be so weak despite having 100 trillion stat points, he realizes that he ran out of time before he could distribute them. He then decides to fight back against the goblin with his current stats and manages to defeat it with his next strike. Suddenly, a status window opens in front of him, and he finds that killing just one goblin makes him reach level 32 because he has a 10,000% exp increase bonus. Just then, Seiji and the Loli also level up, and they assign their stat points to strength and stamina. Shigeru realizes that they can't see each other's system window, and he decides to put 1 trillion points in each of his attributes for now. Just as he does that, his system window starts to glitch and a golden light shines on him. Shigeru wonders what is happening, and then his system reveals that his class has been decided based on his stats. His class is the Almighty God, and Shigeru can't fully grasp what that means. He is snapped out of his thoughts as a goblin starts hitting him, but his attacks don't do any damage at all. Shigeru decides to try out his strength against the goblin, and he hits it with a finger flick, which is enough to send it flying to the stratosphere. No one else sees what just happened, and they think that it was just a gust of wind. Seiji and the Loli resume hunting the goblins, but Seika is still struggling with getting her bow ready. She gets teary-eyed and Shigeru decides to have pity on her. He acts like he is a bow maniac and needs to string one immediately so that Seika doesn't feel bad about taking his help, and his trick works on the stupid girl. She hands the bow to Shigeru, who uses his 1 trillion dexterity points to string the bow in one fell swoop. Seika is impressed and insists that he shoot one arrow as a thanks, and Shigeru decides to try one of the skills he got along with his class. He selects the Thunder Arrow skill and then launches the arrow ahead, but instead of hitting any goblin it flies towards the sky instead. Shigeru wonders if his accuracy is that bad, but then suddenly, a gigantic magic circle appears in the sky and a majestic thunder dragon comes out of it, hitting the ground and killing all the goblins. Everyone is shocked to see this, but Shigeru just says that he was in the archery club where they teach this type of stuff. Seika believes him once again and then decides to support her friends in the battle, but she just randomly fires arrows even without aiming. Seiji and the Loli decide that they should handle the rest of the goblins as well, and Seika soon runs out of arrows. She gets gloomy and disappointed at her uselessness, and Shigeru pities her yet again. He uses a skill to turn a stick into more arrows and tells her that there are some item drops on the ground. Seika gets happy to find them, but she wastes them all again anyway, and in the meantime, the other two finish off all the goblins. Soon after that, they reach the town, and while everyone else rushes to eat something, Shigeru decides to go his separate ways because an ugly loser like him needs to be alone. He sits near a fountain and realizes that he is hungry too, and just then, a cat arrives there. He is about to pet it, but stops fearing that she might be a female and he may lose 10% HP if he touches it. Just then, Seika arrives there, and Shigeru is so startled that he falls into water. After he gets out, Seika tells him that she bought a burger for him because she knows he is broke, and she wanted to thank him for helping her earlier. Shigeru begins to see her in a more positive light and accepts the huge burger, but coincidentally, their fingers touch, and he gets a powerful shock that makes his throw the burger away. He suffers 58 trillion damage, which is enough to destroy the world 300 times over. But the bigger problem is that Seika is upset now because she thinks that Shigeru threw away the burger on purpose. However, he has his skills from the days when he was a top salesman, and he tells Seika that he was startled because she is too beautiful. He tells her that he will eat the burger she bought for him, and she tells him that it is too dirty. She offers him the one she bought for herself instead because she is really grateful to him, and he decides to accept her gratitude. As he eats the burger, Seiji and the Loli find them, and Shigeru decides to stick around till he pays Seika for the burger. Soon after that, Seika heads to a store to buy some arrows because she runs out of them so quickly. She keeps asking the shopkeeper for more arrows, claiming that she is rich enough to pay for them. But the man tells her that her bag is already full. Shigeru is also with her, and he wants to help her out. But he can't tell her that he can create arrows anytime he wants. Anyway, Seika asks him if he is not going to buy anything, and she immediately answers her question, realizing that he can't buy anything because he is broke. He freaks out on seeing Shigeru's ugly and the lowly return but quickly gets back to the topic and asks everyone if they are says that he will stay in the park because obviously he has no money. But Seika says that she will pay for his room. Shigeru tries to tell her that there is no need for that, but Seika plays the woman card and asks if he doesn't want a girl to pay for his room. Shigeru isn't even given the time to reply as Seika grabs his hand and starts dragging him along. But since she touches him through the clothes, he doesn't take any damage. Later that night, Shigeru thinks that he can't stay here any longer because then he will be under more debt to Sokka and others. The money the MC earns is reduced to 1/10,000th part, so he wants to find a way to overcome that restriction and earn a living. The next day, Seiji and others wake up to find some delicious cookies and food waiting on the table for them. Shigeru tells them to help him because he can't eat it all, and they ask how did he get all that when he doesn't have any money. Shigeru replies that he used a technique that makes people want to give him something in return. However, he just created some arrows using sticks and used the barter system to sell them for food instead of money. Seika tells him that he doesn't need to beg just because he is broke, because she can always help him out. Well, Shigeru thinks that he has repaid his debt to her, so he doesn't need to stick around any longer. Once they are done eating, Seiji pulls out the map and says that they need to start going on quests so that they can earn some money. He has noticed that the monsters they fought yesterday didn't drop any money or loot, so he is planning to check out a cave nearby. Shigeru is impressed by Seiji's decision-making abilities, when suddenly, a rugged man arrives there, saying that he can be his guide to the cave. The man introduces himself as Kyoshiro and claims to be reincarnated just like them. He freaks out on seeing Shigeru's ugly face, but quickly gets back to the topic and asks everyone if they are new here. Seiji immediately gets up to talk to him while keeping his guard up, and then Kyoshiro pulls out some green cards from his pocket, saying that it is an item they find at the first log house, and they can get a full discount at the inn using it once. Seika panics on hearing this because they didn't find the cards, and Kyoshiro tells her that she can get a full refund even if she shows the cards now. He tells her to take them and Seika immediately takes the cards, much to Seiji's disbelief because he still doesn't trust Kyoshiro fully yet. Shigeru is the same, and he thinks that rather than being a guide, Kyoshiro is someone who exploits newbies. He thinks that he can handle the situation if things go bad, and for now, he decides to let Seiji make the decision. Seiji weighs the pros and cons of the situation, and decides to hire Kyoshiro to guide them in the end because they need information and ways to level up quickly. With that, Kyoshiro leads the group to the cave and soon, a bunch of goblins arrive there. Seika immediately starts firing arrows at them, but none of them actually hit. Shigeru is disappointed and Kyoshiro tells Seika to think that her arrows are worth 1,000,000 yen before firing. Even though she is proud of her wealth, imagining the high cost makes Seika more careful with her aim, and she is able to take down a goblin with a precise strike. They move ahead after that, and Shigeru is surprised that Kyoshiro is actually doing a good job as a guide. After that, Kyoshiro guides everyone on how to use their weapon properly, and Seika relapses into her old habit of shooting arrows mindlessly. Kyoshiro asks Shigeru if he is not going to practice, and he replies that he doesn't have any suitable skills right now. Kyoshiro gets that it is hard to level up with staff as his weapon, but he asks Shigeru not to be disappointed because the ultimate skill of the staff is really awesome. Shigeru already knows this because when he went to the forest to make arrows, he encountered a giant orc and decided to try his strongest skill against it. However, the system warned him that if he used that skill, everything within a radius of 200 kilometers would be wiped out and over 1.5 million people would die, so he cancelled it immediately. Anyway, Kyoshiro tells him to be active on the battlefield or he will be forced to retire just like him. He begins telling the story of how he used to be in a mercenary group, but while their leader became a king, he fell off and had to retire. He begins praising the king, saying that he is at level 80 and all his stats are over 160, but that is incredibly weak for Shigeru. After that, they finally reach the cave, which looks like ancient ruins, and everyone is excited to explore them, but Seika is scared. However, once she reaches the cave, she gets curious about the limestone spikes and starts sulking when Kaiosho tells her to stay away because they are dangerous. Shigeru wonders if Seika is actually a kid, and Seiji asks her the question in a more sensible manner. He first reveals that he was 30 years old in the other world, and then Seika says that she is 17 years old in real life and preparing for college. While Seiji begins talking about her studies, Shigeru realizes that Seika is at least academically smart. After that, they fight against some monster bats and reach the boss room, and Seika finally learns about thinking before taking an action. Kaiosho tells her that she shouldn't enter the boss room because she will die immediately at this rate, and Seika backs away. Seiji decides to call it a day and thanks Kaioshiro for his help, and he replies that he will make a good leader. However, before returning, he has a special event for the newbies, and he leads them to a conference room to throw a party for them. He says that another summoned person created this safe space where no monster or magic can reach, and inside, there are chips and drinks. Shigeru immediately uses his poison detection skills and finds that the rims of the cans have been spiked with a sleeping drug. Luckily, Seiji is cautious enough to turn down the offer, but when Kaiosho acts sad and depressed, he apologizes for doubting his sincerity. He agrees to celebrate with him, and Shigeru is low-key disappointed by Seiji's goodness. Anyway, everyone begins to eat and drink, and Shigeru decides to distract them with a conversation so that he can cast antidote magic on them. He asks what they all did before coming here, and the vibe of the room quickly dies down. Shigeru realizes immediately that everyone here ran from their previous lives, including himself, but then Seiji decides to open up about his past a bit. He says that he left school after getting bored of everything and decided to start his own company called Success Life. Shigeru remembers that he once went to that company to make a sales pitch, and the CEO looked a lot like Seiji. Turns out Seiji remembers him as well because he made a big impact on him, and though he doesn't disclose his name, he reveals that a salesman came to him without an appointment and tried to sell him an expensive copier. He tried to bargain, but the salesman said that he would make him smile and never let him down. He also asked him to take it easy because he was the CEO, and inspired by his words, Seiji let his employees run the company. Luckily, his company made it big and everything was going well, but then he decided to replace his staff with AI, and that bankrupted his company. He became depressed and felt like he wasted the opportunity that the salesman had given him. That's why, when he came here, he swore that he would never let anyone down. He suddenly reveals that the salesman's name was Shigeru too, but our fat guy pretends that he was not the salesman. Soon after that, everyone falls asleep as a result of the drugs, and Kaiosho brings his gang of thugs to take them away. However, Shigeru is only pretending to be asleep so that he can deal with the thugs when the chance comes. The thugs start handcuffing everyone, and just as Shigeru is about to do something, Seiji gets up, telling the thugs to not harm his party. Kaiosho doesn't take him seriously because he knows that Seiji can barely stand, and he tells his men to carry on with their work. Shigeru can't use his abilities now because he doesn't want Seiji to get caught in the crossfire, but luckily, Seiji tries picking a fight with the thugs, only to get slammed at the wall. Kaiosho tells his men to not hurt their products because that will reduce their value, and Seiji gets mad at hearing this. He says that the people who come here have already been broken by life, and when they get a second chance, people like him push them down. Kaiosho tells him to lecture someone who will listen and tells his men to pack him up. Shigeru decides that it is his time to join the fight, and he simply jumps upon the bandits, squishing them under his weight instead of using his attack stats. He tells Seiji to take the girls and run away, leaving everything to him, but Seiji refuses to leave him in danger alone. He tells the bandits not to mess with them because he can take them down in one hit, but everyone thinks he is bluffing. The bandits dash towards him, but Shigeru decides to intercept them by bouncing around, absorbing their weak-ass punches and crushing them under his weight. Kaiosho tells his men to deal with the jumping pig first, and Seiji asks him to run away because he will handle it. The thugs jump Shigeru, even though they don't really do any damage, but then one of them puts his fingers up his nostrils. Suddenly, a bright light starts coming out from Seiji's hand as he tells the bandits to back away before his light of truth pierces their evil hearts. They are taken aback and ask what is that skill, and Seiji explains that he made an oath in his special note that he will never let his friends down, and if he ever does that, he will pay the price for it. Because of that oath, he received a lot of bonus points, and he put them in his special skill that activates when he is angry. He tells the bandits that this is their last chance to run away, But Kyoshiro says that they will just chop off his hand before he can attack them. Shigeru decides to see what Seiji's attack can do, and he becomes a shield for him, telling him that they need to work together because they are outnumbered. Seiji then uses his special skill to transform into a Super Saiyan form that even Goku hasn't unlocked yet, telling the thugs that they will pay for their sins now. Kyoshiro and his men panic because they have not seen anyone transform like this before, and Shigeru is quite curious to see what Super Saiyan Seiji can do. Seiji suddenly screams out the name of his next attack, and his hand starts growing even brighter. He then dashes ahead towards Kyoshiro, but stops just short of punching him in the face. Kyoshiro asks him why the hell did he stop, and Seiji says that he is not the one to judge him, because that is for the law of this country. He knows that he can easily destroy the bandits right now, but he wants to give them a chance to repent for their sins and start a fresh life. Shigeru knows that this is as dumb as someone can get while trying to be a lawful good person, but he doesn't try to stop Seiji. Suddenly, Kyoshiro tells Seiji that he wins. He puts his weapon down and kneels before accepting his punishment, and the naive Seiji believes him. He begins walking away, telling Kyoshiro that he won't forgive him if he commits another crime. Shigeru doesn't warn him this time as well, even though he knows that he is making the worst mistake by turning his back towards the enemy. Using this chance, Kyoshiro rushes to attack Seiji, but Shigeru trips him using his rolling technique. The bandits curse Shigeru and start kicking him, but their attacks don't do any damage. Shigeru casually removes a booger from his nose and flicks it towards the wall, creating a huge explosion. While everyone stares at the destroyed wall in shock, Shigeru sneakily points Seiji's glowing fist towards the wall to make them believe that he did it. However, the problem is that even Seiji can't believe that, and Shigeru decides to step up his game. He says that he clearly saw Seiji execute his ultimate move and a white hawk descended from heaven, blowing up the wall. The bandits totally believe this story even before Seiji himself is convinced. They fall to their knees on realizing that they can't win, and Kyoshiro has tears and snot running down his face as he swears that he won't do bad things ever again. Shigeru realizes that this is not enough to punish them, and he orders the bandits to get in a line. They immediately obey, and then Shigeru asks Seiji to hit them with his special attack. Seiji hesitates because he doesn't want to punish someone who has already accepted defeat. The bandits are also terrified because they think they will die if they get hit by that attack. So Shigeru comes up with a middle ground, telling Seiji to slap those bastards with his righteous fist so that they know the pain of others. He manages to convince Seiji that he is the only one who can turn these bandits on the right path with the power of love. He remembers that Seiji claimed that his glowing fist can pierce all evil, and if the bandits are still acting, they will be destroyed by his slap. However, if they really have had a change of heart, they will be unharmed. However, to his shock, Seiji turns back into his normal form, saying that if he wants to change the heart of the bandits through the power of love, he can't do it using his Super Saiyan form that is fueled by anger. The bandits can't believe that someone can be this stupid, but it all works out in their favor anyway. Seiji has tears in his eyes as he slaps them with love, and the bandits thank him for giving them a chance after being slapped. Once everyone has been slapped, Shigeru ties up the bandits while Seiji carries the girls to safety. However, he is too exhausted to finish the job and collapses. The bandits suddenly get hopeful that they can win against him now, and they try to bribe Shigeru to join their side. They promise to bring some women who will do it even with an ugly bastard like him, and on top of that, they will pay him more. However, Shigeru decides to show them that he is just ugly but not a bastard. He simply snaps his handcuffs to scare the bandits and then tells them that Seiji is even stronger than him. The bandits can only curse him for turning down their offer, but Shigeru doesn't really care about their comments. Soon, Kyoshiro and his men are turned into the local authorities, and Shigeru and his party get a huge amount of money from collecting their bounties. The girls are really excited to see this much money, and Seiji says that they should divide it amongst them. Seika says that they were unconscious so they don't deserve any money, and Seiji should take it because he defeated the bandits. She then asks about Shigeru, and Seiji says that Shigeru was even braver than him, and he tanked all the hits to keep him safe. The girls say that Shigeru was the MVP of the mission in this case, and he should get the most money. Seiji agrees with them, but Shigeru doesn't want to take the money because it will get reduced to 0.01% of the amount. So he tells Seiji that he has a bad habit of spending money as soon as he gets it, and he wants someone trustworthy to hold on to it for him. Seiji doesn't really go along with the plan, but when Shigeru insists that he can't keep the money, Seika volunteers to handle his money on his behalf. Seiji doesn't think that it is a good idea for someone as clueless and impulsive as her to handle the amount. But Shigeru lets her take the money because it will help him repay his debt to her when he leaves the party. Soon after that, Seika takes Seiji to the hamburger place to treat him to something nice, and he thinks that this is their last meal together because now he can run off on his own without any guilt. Seika soon returns with 2 happy meals, and Shigeru asks her if she loves hamburgers a lot. She tells him that she ate them for the first time 2 days ago and immediately fell in love, and Shigeru can't believe that she never ate a burger in the real world. Anyway, they start eating, and Seika asks him about his stats. Shigeru replies that they are pretty boring, and she tells him that he must have not noticed it, but lowering one's looks gives them a lot of stat points. Shigeru is shocked to learn that Seika found that out too, and he asks her if she reduced her look points as well. She tells him that she lowered them to -16, and he can't believe it because she looks too pretty for that. Seika proudly tells him that she used the special note feature on the welcome screen to wish to become pretty, and that somehow overwrote her low look stats. Shigeru gets the greatest shock of his life on realizing that he could have done that and become handsome as well. But it is too late for that now. Just then, Seika notices a cat and eagerly says that she has never seen one up close. She begins wondering if there is any chance the cat can come here, and when Shigeru tells her to just go there to pet it, she gives him a judgmental stare. However, she immediately realizes that his advice makes sense and says that she forgot she could walk now. She then rushes towards the cat clumsily, and Shigeru realizes her deal. While she tries to pet the cat, Shigeru goes to the washroom and starts crying thinking about Seika's rough life. He now realizes that in the real world, she must be suffering from some condition that left her paralyzed at a young age. He pities her and asks if there is no God, when suddenly, he realizes that he is the almighty God in this world, and he might not be able to change reality, but he can help her out in other ways. Just then, Seika knocks at the door, asking if he needs medicine, and Shigeru tells her that he is fine. As he freshens up, he realizes that Seika is clumsy with her body and naive while interacting with others because of her past, and that will make her an easy target for villains. So he decides to stick with her and keep her safe till she becomes a fully competent adult. Soon after that, they reach the inn and Seiji calls a meeting to decide their job class so that they can become a more dynamic party. He declares that he will become the hero, Seika will become an archer, the blonde lowly will become a mage, and Shigeru will become an epic fighter. Shigeru doesn't like adding the adjective epic in his job class for some reason. Seika suddenly speaks up, saying that she wants to be a hero too, but when Shigeru tells her that she can become the epic fighter in his place, she immediately refuses. In the end, Seiji remains the only hero of the group, so Seika becomes a mage instead, and the lowly decides to become a hunter, while Shigeru also retains his job class. Once they purchase their new gear, Seiji decides to move to the largest city in the region, but before that, he sets up a budget for snacks keeping Seika's spending habits in mind. With that, the meeting is dismissed, but Seika stays behind to talk to the lowly, who is her first friend here. She is nervous to talk to her, but Shigeru silently wishes her all the best. Seika finally manages to gather the courage to ask her to play jump rope with her, saying that she has practiced for it. The lowly agrees, and the two girls head to change their clothes so that they can play. Meanwhile, Shigeru recalls how things turned out this way. Earlier, as he went shopping with Seika, she wanted to buy a cool-looking weapon, but he discouraged her from buying anything dangerous by saying only epic fighters use them. However, she got stuck on buying a nunchuck, but thanks to an unexpected collaboration between Shigeru and the shopkeeper, she changed her choice to a skipping rope instead. Once they left the shop, Shigeru taught her how to use the rope, and she quickly caught up. However, her mind soon wandered off to the blonde girl and how she wanted to be friends with her despite not knowing her name. Shigeru suggested a few ways to become friends with her, and that leads him to the present, where he is spying on the two girls as they play. The blonde girl quickly learns to skip rope from Seika, but when she brings up the topic of her name, she suddenly stops. Seika realizes that she really doesn't want to share her name, and then says that she discussed it with Shigeru earlier, and they came up with the nickname Reese for her. The blonde lowly goes completely silent on hearing this and starts skipping rope again, jumping really high at the end. Everyone is surprised by this, and soon, a huge crowd swarms her, asking her to join their party. Seika tries to reach closer to her, but everyone ignores her and a guy even pushes her. She suddenly starts crying, and Shigeru has no choice but to go ahead and help her. The people freak out on seeing him and call him a monster. But the blonde girl Rize tells them that he is a member of their party. She is worried about Seika too and says that she just wanted to make her happy by showing her a trick, and Shigeru tells her that simply responding would have done a better job. Rize starts feeling really guilty about that and runs away crying, and in the end, Shigeru has to console Seika all the way back to the inn. However, as soon as she is about to enter her room, she finds a letter from Rize, apologizing for earlier and thanking her for the nickname. Seika immediately runs out to look for her, but Shigeru had already noticed Rize hiding behind the corner. He asks her to come out, and she tells him that she needs to talk to him in private. He asks her not to sue him later and then goes into the room, where Rize does a flying grovel to apologize to him. He gets confused about why she is apologizing to him, but then Rize reveals that she knows his full legal name, as well as the fact that he was the salesman that Seiji was talking about. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.